That is why we Christians cannot approach the sacramental worship of God as solitaries. Instead, in sacrament, we meet God by meeting the people of God. Thus, Vatican II's Constitution on the Liturgy, paragraph 59, affirms that the public social things we do when we baptize or marry or anoint the sick are precisely sacraments of faith, actions that bring us holiness, build up Christ's body, worship God, and thereby presuppose, nourish, strengthen, and express faith. Keep in mind that faith, like grace, is a relational reality that expresses how we belong to God and how we belong to the people of God. Notice once again that the sacramental theology of Vatican II goes an important step beyond what the Baltimore Catechism had been willing to say about the purpose of a sacrament. Sacraments do indeed give or confer grace, the Constitution on the Liturgy remarks. But in addition, the very act of celebrating them effectively disposes the faithful to receive this grace to their profit, to worship God duly, and to practice charity. A sacrament's scope thus reaches far beyond the mere conferral of grace or faith. Indeed, a sacrament's effectiveness can be fully gauged and engaged only in the liturgy of the neighbor, in our service of others, our work on behalf of justice, our solidarity with the poor. That is one reason why paragraph 1397 of the New Catechism argues, quite unambiguously, that the Eucharist commits us to the poor. To receive in truth the body and blood of Christ given up for us, we must recognize Christ in the poorest. To speak about sacraments of faith is not therefore to assert that our believing causes or produces sacramental effects, as though God's grace were somehow dependent upon human power. As my teacher, Father Aidan Kavanaugh, wrote in a stimulating study on liturgical theology, Christians do not worship because they believe because the one in whose gift faith lies is regularly met in the act of communal worship, not because the assembly conjures up God, but because the initiative lies with the God who has promised to be there always. It was a presence, not faith, which drew Moses to the burning bush, Father Kavanaugh goes on to say. And what happened there was a revelation, not a seminar. It was a presence, not faith, which drew the disciples to Jesus, and what happened then was not an educational program, but his revelation to them of himself as the long-promised anointed one, the redeeming, because reconciling, Messiah Christos. Their lives, like that of Moses, were changed radically by that encounter with a presence which upended all their ordinary expectations. It was, Father Kavanaugh also reminds us, the liturgical sacramental celebration of baptism that gave rise to those summaries of faith we call the Christian creeds. It was not the creeds that produced baptism. So sacraments always point beyond themselves, forward to that mystery who is the world's elusive, inexhaustible, irreducible life, but also back to that very world where, to use the Gospel of John's graphic image, the Word pitched its tent and dwelt among us. Yes, our God had the effrontery not merely to create a human habitable cosmos, complete with creatures like Adam and Eve who could talk back and quibble with their Creator, but to embrace it so thoroughly that the divine self and the world's destiny are forever welded, yoked, locked in the life, death, and rising of Jesus of Nazareth. For that reason, the world itself continues to be a vital part of God's own life, an essential element in God's own biography. Christian sacraments thus make use shamelessly of the raw stuff of this world, placing it in the care of human practices, the natural innocence of oil and water, kisses, rings, and vows exchanged between lovers, grain gifts of the earth and fruit of the vine that become work of human hands. Like its God, the Church's sacramental liturgy places itself at the service of what theologian Karl Rahner once called the liturgy of the world, that great and terrible liturgy, that stretches throughout the length and breadth of human history, a liturgy smelling of death and sacrifice, lilies and urine. It is to this presence that sacraments seek to weld us, to wed us.